Introduction. The sun had barely risen on April 28, 1908, when the smoldering ruins of Belle Gunness's farmhouse greeted the eyes of her neighbors and the local authorities in LaPorte, Indiana. Smoke curled into the sky, carrying with it the acrid scent of charred wood and the unmistakable stench of burnt flesh. The first responders, eyes wide with horror, stumbled upon a scene that would haunt them for years. The farmhouse, once a symbol of rural tranquility, had transformed into a grotesque monument to death. As they sifted through the ashes, the full extent of the horror began to reveal itself. Bodies, some intact, some mere fragments, were unearthed from the blackened debris. The smell of decay mingled with the scent of smoke, creating an almost unbearable miasma. It was a scene of utter chaos and disbelief, where every shovelful of dirt revealed yet another gruesome secret. At the center of this macabre tableau stood Belle Gunness, a seemingly respectable widow whose farm concealed unimaginable horrors. Belle was an immigrant from Norway who had come to America seeking a better life. She settled in LaPorte, Indiana, and transformed her farm into a lucrative enterprise. But beneath her facade of respectability lay a calculated and ruthless killer. Belle's background was as complex as it was tragic. Born in Norway, she immigrated to the United States in the late 19th century. She married twice, both husbands meeting untimely and suspicious ends. After their deaths, Belle used her farm to lure wealthy men, promising them love and prosperity. Instead, they met brutal deaths, their bodies buried in shallow graves on her property. Belle Gunness was a psychological enigma. Her actions defied the gender norms of her time, challenging the societal expectations placed upon women. The pressures of immigrant life, coupled with her own ambitions and desires, may have driven her to commit such heinous acts. She was a master manipulator, able to hide her true nature while presenting herself as a grieving widow and loving mother. The sheer number of victims is staggering. Estimates suggest that Belle may have killed as many as 40 people, including her own children. Her methods were cold and calculated. She used poison, blunt force, and fire to dispatch her victims, ensuring their wealth became hers. Belle's ability to manipulate public perception allowed her to evade suspicion for years. She hid in plain sight, her crimes undetected by a society ill-equipped to recognize a female serial killer. The early 20th century presented significant forensic and societal limitations. The science of criminal investigation was still in its infancy. Forensic techniques we take for granted today were non-existent or rudimentary at best. These limitations allowed Belle to continue her murderous activities with little fear of capture. The forensic limitations were further compounded by the societal attitudes of the time. The idea that a woman, especially a widow and mother, could be capable of such heinous acts was inconceivable to many. This gender bias in criminal investigations played directly into Belle's hands, allowing her to slip under the radar. Early law enforcement, with its patriarchal assumptions, often failed to consider women as serious criminal threats, especially in cases involving violent murders. In this environment, Belle thrived. Her crimes met with disbelief rather than scrutiny. It was not just her manipulation of individuals, but her manipulation of societal norms that kept her hidden, in plain sight. Exploring Belle Gunness's case through a historical and psychological lens provides valuable insights.